Hello everybody and welcome to another video of DIY investing. For today's video, I'm going to be breaking down what I feel is going to be one of the best strategies moving forward into this next bull cycle, a way that we can accumulate crypto, take profits on that crypto, and where most importantly to diversify that crypto into a new asset class that is surely to see some of the biggest ROI over the next 10 years. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Now, before we jump into the video, I wanted to quickly link this into the description for anybody that wants to read the entire letter. This is a really important update on the Gemini Earn program, as well as some of the details that have recently emerged regarding what actually happened to that Gemini Earn program, and for the people that maybe are watching this video that actually have lost money inside of that program. Now, Cameron Winklevoss, the co-founder of Gemini Exchange, his twin brother is the other founder. He actually came out here and posted a letter directed directly to Barry Silbert. Now, for you guys that don't know who Barry Silbert is, he is the leader of the DCG group, which is Digital Coin Group. And he's also the creator of Grayscale. Now, the way that this works, which I'm not going to go through and read the whole thing, but apparently Barry Silbert owns $1.1 billion to Cameron Winklevoss, in which that is the reason why the whole Gemini Earn program is not working right now. Apparently, that is where they're losing out on all of this money. They have a giant hole that they can't fulfill, and that's really where everybody that was participating inside of the Gemini Earn program lost their money. And so he's come through here, posted this letter. I will link it in the description for anybody that wants to read. I don't need to get into too many details, but then Barry Silbert replied and said, DCG did not borrow $1.675 billion from Genesis. DCG has never missed an interest payment to Genesis and is current on all loans outstanding. Next loan maturity is May 2023. DCG delivered to Genesis and your advisors a proposal on December 29th and has not received any response. Then Cameron replies, there you go again. Stop trying to pretend that you and DCG are innocent bystanders and had nothing to do with creating this mess. It's completely disingenuous. So how does DCG owe Genesis $1.675 billion if it did not borrow the money? Oh right, that promissory note. And then Cameron replies again, will you or will you not commit to solving this by January 8th in a manner that treats the $1.1 billion promissory note as the $1.1 billion? Now, the way this is looking, we don't have details yet, but Barry Silbert apparently actually owes $1.1 billion and is the whole reason why the Gemini Earn program is no longer solvent and why they have so much liquidity issues. So, if you guys want to read this, links in the description, or you can pause this video and watch it. Now, let's actually dive into what we're seeing in the Bitcoin chart. Now, guys, the big reason why I wanted to even talk about that is because if the DCG group actually goes under, or if Grayscale has any sort of insolvency issues, and this is actually, a big deal, then that easily could be the catalyst that's going to see Bitcoin go for one more low, if we actually see Bitcoin go for one more low. And so the way the market's working, we're still just consolidating below resistance. And so as long as, we can hold support, we could eventually see a move back up to reclaim and make our first new higher high of the cycle. We have to watch and see ultimately what's going to happen, but this is a big update, guys. We have not had any true details emerge regarding the situation, and so a lot of people have been speculating, well, if this is actually going to be as big of a deal as Cameron is making it out to be, where, there's potentially going to be insolvency issues not only on DCG's part, but over at Grayscale because they're directly correlated in this mess. If that's going to be the case, then that could easily be the FUD that we would need to see to knock Bitcoin down for one more low. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen because we literally don't have enough details on the matter. January the 8th is literally only 6 days away, and so if that is ultimately going to be a date that we need to mark on our calendar, I don't know what it means. Cameron didn't give any specific details on that, but if that's a big thing that we need to be watching out for, I think it's important that we ultimately pay attention for the resolution of what's going to come from this. Pay attention for it. Follow these guys on Twitter. Ultimately, they're going to talk about it first before anybody because they're the ones that know what's going on. But if we are going to see Bitcoin go for one more low, it will be centered around this mess that's going on with Grayscale, with DCG, Gemini Earn, and all of this stuff. And so just be aware of that, guys. Now, with that being said, in the shorter time frames with Bitcoin, overall Bitcoin's looking pretty solid. We had a nice little buyback. Nothing too crazy as of right now. If we go to the shorter time frames, Bitcoin to me rallied upwards into the lower part of our resistance, and it looks like we're going to have a short-term pullback here. Wouldn't be surprised if we pull back to this part which is going to be at about $16,500, really $16,637. And I wouldn't be surprised if we make another attempt back up at the range highs at about $16,950 or just under $17,000. That's kind of what I'm watching out for with Bitcoin in the short term. But keep in mind, guys, that the volatility in the short term can be very much moving around what's going to happen with Genesis, what's going to happen with DCG, what's going to happen with Grayscale, and all of that mess there. If there's going to be one bit of FUD that ultimately sees Bitcoin go to a new low, this is where it's going to be focused around. And so the PA is bearish. The total market cap is technically still holding support above the June low, so we don't have any sort of confirmation. What we would need to see is ultimately Bitcoin make a higher high above 17,000. If we can make a higher high above 17,000, consolidate here, that sets us up for a much bigger move to the upside where we could potentially be looking at back up at $19,000 and $20,000. That's what we need to see for the bullish perspective. Overall, we've held support. We've done pretty well considering that I would have expected that we would have broke down from this. So the longer that we hold support, in my opinion, the more likely it is that we're actually going to see another move back up to $19,000 to $20,000. So keep in mind, guys, watch what's going to happen with the DCG group. Watch what's going to happen with all this insolvency issues, because that's kind of going to be the black swan event that may or may not dictate the movement of crypto. If somebody's lying, if somebody's just trying to protect themselves, I don't know which side it's on. To me, it's looking like it's more likely on Barry Silbert being commingling his own interests between DCG group and over at Grayscale. Then that obviously could create some issues, and we could easily see one final lower low. Keep in mind, guys, that I'm not going to try and predict that. All of these sort of things are undetermined. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. So the best thing that we can do is simply plan for each scenario. Now, guys, what I was talking about at the beginning of this video was basically mapping out a strategy that I think could be very profitable heading into our next cycle. Now, guys, one of the big things that we know for a long time is the fact that Bitcoin and the equity markets are highly correlated. Bitcoin and the SPX follow each other almost to an 80% correlation. And so whatever the SPX does, Bitcoin does, and vice versa. And so what we're seeing here with the SPX, we've been in this downtrend. Ever since Bitcoin and the SPX topped, we've seen Bitcoin going into its bear market. We've seen lower lows and lower highs all throughout this entire correction inside the S&P 500. And now it's looking like we potentially could be making another rally back up into resistance. Keep in mind, guys, that if we're ever going to see the end of the Bitcoin bear market, it's going to be around what the SPX does. If we can finally get outside of this descending resistance here, that's going to set us up for a much deeper move to the upside. And once that takes place, once we get outside of this descending resistance, that, in my opinion, is going to dictate the bottom of the bear market. One of the early signals that we have that potentially the bottom is in and Bitcoin's going to hold support is the fact that the Dow Jones is leading the SPX, and the Dow Jones is actually outside of all descending resistance. This thing has already flipped its descending resistance. It's looking pretty bullish as of right now. Keep in mind, we could still see some more consolidation if we have some sort of big FUD event or anything really for that matter. And so if there's anything that's kind of dictating the potential of the bottom being in my opinion, it's kind of around the Dow Jones. And what we're seeing with the Dow Jones holding strength, we're actually seeing the SPX looking like it wants to make another run back up to the descending resistance. Now, if that's the case, if this truly is the bottom of the bear market, we would expect to see a big move happen off of these lows. Whether it's one more capitulation like this, or whether this is kind of the bottom here and we're about to start making another run back up into 19,000, 20,000. Either way, what's going to happen, in my opinion, I believe that we're going to get an equilibrium where Bitcoin rallies back up around this 30K region. That's pretty much the level that I'm watching for. Wherever the bottom is, if we make one more low, I think it would look something like this. If we don't make another low, I think it would look something like this, right? Where we just make another move back up to this 30K region. And once that actually gets hit, keep in mind that we could extend a little bit higher. We don't know exactly what's going to happen here. But if we flip this level and get one more bigger extension, we could very easily see Bitcoin rally even upwards of $40,000. I'm not going to say that that one's the likelihood scenario. I'm just saying that if we end up seeing a move that's kind of similar to this 14K move where we consolidated for 3 months and rallied all the way back up here, keep in mind that this one rallied all the way up to the 61A. And so if we're watching for this bear market, this has been one of the gnarliest bear markets as far as just straight all the way to the downside type of price action. right? In 2018, we held support for like 8 months before having our final 50% decline. With this one, you know, we hang around here for 2 months. We hung around here for about 4 months, but nothing too crazy, right? We've had pretty massive drops all the way down inside of this bear market. So if we're watching this, and we're kind of trying to determine where we're going to be at into this cycle, one of the big things that I like to look at personally is looking from the high of the move down here to wherever the low is going to be, and that's going to kind of dictate how big of the move we could see to the upside. Keep in mind, guys, that the 618 is going to be all the way up here at about 50K, or basically the top of this lower high. I'm not necessarily thinking that that's going to be the obvious solution, most definitely not the obvious solution, but keep in mind that we have seen that in years past. Throughout the bear markets of Bitcoin, we've seen rallies upwards of the 236. We've seen rallies in between the 236 and the 382. We've even seen rallies upwards in between the 382 and the 0.5. And so we've been all over the place in prior bear markets. And that's why the best thing that we can do is be willing to accumulate as we're near down 80% from the all-time highs. Because the first move that happens after this breakout is going to, in my opinion, at least go upwards of the 236, which is about 30K. And from there, you know, if we can retest this previous high, then that sets us up for the 382, the 0.5, and maybe even the 618. I don't know, guys. It depends how many buyers we get stepping in here. But one of the big things I can tell you guys from personal experience, back here in 2018, nobody, not even the best traders I was following, nobody was expecting Bitcoin to rally all the way up here to the 618. It just wasn't something that people were really talking about. Because in prior bear markets, Bitcoin in prior bear markets had always taken a period of time to accumulate, to make higher highs and higher lows, but they never were too big in comparison, right? Well, 2018 and 2019 roll around, Bitcoin makes the biggest breakout off of the lows that we'd ever seen, and that rallied all the way up to the 618. When I saw that happen, I literally didn't accumulate enough because I just simply thought that I would have more time, as many other people did. Obviously, Bitcoin left many of these people, including myself, behind in a big way. I could have accumulated way more Bitcoin than I did, but I didn't because I missed out. I got too focused in on the fact that I thought there was going to be this multi-month process of accumulation that never came. And so if this bear market could end up being the same thing where, you know, this 2023 starts off, we rally up here like this, and then we make a big move all the way upwards of 30, 40, and potentially even $50,000. It has happened in years past, and if that's the case again, there is going to be way too many people that missed out on accumulating at these low points. And I can guarantee you guys that even if you were somebody that bought the very top of August, bought the very top of this pump in September, bought the very top right before the FTX collapse, if you were anybody that bought any of these tops, it literally won't matter once Bitcoin starts the new bull run because you'll be in profit. You will have accumulated it near bottom of the bear market. No one's ever going to nail the exact bottom. Nobody should ever try to nail the exact bottom. You should have a focus when the time to be accumulating is and start accumulating as follows. Our 4-year cycle time frames are flashing. We're over 1,400 days from our last cycle low. We're over a year from our cycle high, which is what we needed to see. And so if we do start our next bull run very soon, which in my opinion we will, it's either going to get one more quick capitulation into the end of this month, and then we're going to start the next bull trend, or we're going to start it right now. And if we make a big move off of these lows, most people are going to miss out on that. And I'm telling you guys right now, don't be that person. Now, with that being said, we will have a period of reaccumulation after that move. It will be a smart idea to take some profits, especially if you were accumulating down here. There's no sense in leaving that money on the table, especially if we get a big move upwards of the 382.5, maybe even this the 618. And so if that's the case, guys, you will have money, you will have profits. What I'll probably be doing is looking to go back into crypto because we're still so early inside of this next bull cycle. But one of the other scenarios, and the whole point of this video, was talking about how we're actually going to look to diversify our profit. What is the next markets that are going to be behaving similar to crypto? Where can we diversify crypto profits, move them into a completely separate asset class that potentially could even compound our investment even more? And in my opinion, you're not going to find a better alternative to crypto than the commodity markets. We know with all of this record inflation, with the rising interest rates and all of this stuff, commodities are set to have a big rise. We haven't seen a real commodity bull run until pretty much back in the 1970s. If we see here, we saw all of these massive impulses happening inside of the gold and silver markets. And even though back in the early 2000s, all the way upwards of 2011, we saw another little mini run, it really wasn't anything in comparison to our prior bull markets that we'd seen in commodity bull runs, right? This was an inflationary period back when the 2008 financial crisis happened, back when we invaded Iraq and all of this stuff. And so we actually did see a decent rise in commodities, but it was nothing really along the lines of the outperformance that we saw back in the 70s and even 80s when we peaked. Now guys, this is gold against the SPX. So the way that you're looking at this chart, this is the price of gold traded against the price of the SPX index. And so, what do you guys notice here? Does this not look like one of the most bullish market cycles that you've ever seen? This to me looks a lot like a crypto market cycle, where if we come over here, let's go over and take a look at Ethereum, because ETH actually looks pretty similar. Now guys, this is going to help you to ultimately see what I see inside of the market cycles, because nonetheless, whether it's crypto, whether it's some other market, it doesn't necessarily matter that much. There's a reason these are massively correlated to each other, and it has everything to do with the fact that it's the same emotions that dictate the price movement of each cycle. Now, this just reminds me a lot of what we saw here with Ethereum inside of that last bear market. Keep in mind that I wouldn't be surprised if gold ultimately just bottoms here and just breaks out like this and does something like that. Kind of like this move here, where the very beginning of that new bull trend, we saw this type of a formation. And honestly, I really won't be surprised to see roughly the same sort of thing kind of play out again. Nonetheless, it's the same emotions that dictate each and every cycle. What we're looking at on this gold chart is the potential of a big double bottom formation, right? And so even if we get, kind of this last fake out thing like that, it doesn't necessarily matter that much. What we're looking at, in my opinion, isn't so much that we're going to see this move and this final fake out. What I think is more likely is that we're going to see a commodity bull run. And if we look at all of this volume that's came in here, look at all of the volume. Basically since 1994, this final lower low in this chart against the SPX, we actually saw all of this new volume coming in here. And we've seen significant amounts of volume ever since the early 2000s. The early 2000s all the way to the 2011, which was basically the ending of the financial crisis for the most part. We had a couple other scares inside of the oil markets and things like that. But then as we've corrected all the way back down to retest support, we still have so much volume in here. And that's all telling me that what we're actually seeing is people taking profits from their long-term stock portfolios, from the risk-on investments. We're seeing record inflation. We're seeing housing prices going through the roof. We're also seeing interest rates higher than they have been since the 2008 financial crisis. So as far as everything goes, I think that we're set and destined for a massive commodity bull run. And what these charts are telling us is exactly that. What I look for inside of a market cycle to accumulate is literally everything that we're seeing right here inside of the gold chart. Every single thing. When I was buying Ethereum at $100, this is what I was pretty much looking at. Just a massive correction. We made our first higher high. We kind of corrected back down. And with all of this new volume coming in here, there's a lot of money that's actually leaving the stock market, leaving the SPX, and it's going into the gold, silver, and other commodity markets. If we come over here and take a look at the chart of silver, this looks exactly the same as gold. But in the 80s, we even had a bigger impulse. Look how crazy that outperformed the SPX, right? But throughout this time, we've once again held support. This is pretty much the same as the gold chart, maybe a little bit more volatile, but technically this is a higher high, right? And so when we're watching this and we're seeing all of this new volume coming in here, I believe that one of the greatest things that we can do as crypto investors, because of the fact crypto is so heavily correlated with the equity markets, the SPX, it's risk-on type of investment. The reason why we've seen, the Dow Jones actually breaking out and how we've seen the SPX making these big impulses, yet when we look over here at the price of Bitcoin, Bitcoin itself really hasn't done a whole lot, right? We're still just hanging. We've actually made lower lows in the wake of all of the other markets actually retesting their descending resistances. The reason why is because Bitcoin is the most risk-on investment that we have in our markets. If people thought that the S&P 500 was risky, well, wait till you hear about Bitcoin, right? So everybody's kind of waiting for the SPX to break out before we see what happens with Bitcoin. Bitcoin will ultimately find its bottom when the SPX bottoms, when the Dow Jones, which already looks to be reversed, continues to go up. Now, when it comes to the gold and silver markets, what we're seeing here, I believe that one of the best investments that we could do is taking profit on our crypto and diversifying into commodities, because commodities are going to run for multi-years, right? where we're going to be able to take our crypto after massive bull runs, you know, when they've outperformed the whole market by substantial margins. We're going to be able to take those profits, we're going to be able to diversify them into commodities, and those commodities are going to run much longer than a crypto cycle would, right? Crypto cycles are 4 years. We could see a commodity cycle last over 10 years. And if that's the case, one of the very best things that we could do is take our profits, diversify into something else that's going to continue to perform well. While Bitcoin is pulling back, while Bitcoin's in a bear market, these other asset classes have potential to actually move. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at here. When I looked at these charts and saw how bullish gold looks against the SPX and how bullish silver looks against the SPX, to me, it just seems like we're getting ready for a truly monumental bull run in the commodity markets, most likely bigger than anything we have ever seen in years past. That's what I'm betting on. That's honestly what I think. And when I look at some of my favorite investments inside of these markets, Energy Fuels comes to mind. This is one of my very best performing commodity stocks that I've ever had. And I've just been holding it throughout. Well, my entry was $1.56. I bought this all the way back here in August of 2020. Me and my dad actually invested some money into here. And the reason I bought this is because it's one of the high cap stocks for uranium. Uranium is going to be one of the most bullish commodities that you're going to be able to find. And it was literally 100x to the all-time high. This isn't even the all-time high. If you looked on Robinhood, which I think I can't remember if I'm on Webull or Robinhood. But anyways, I've got my money over on one of those exchanges. I only invested $500. Wished I would have put more in because I literally know the bottom of this cycle. But nonetheless, guys, this is going to be one of those that ends up performing well. Even where we're at right now, this is just the disbelief phase where we just made our first higher highs, right? And so if these things are going to run, you know, and they only run up to, you know, some of these little levels over here, you're looking at about a 12x. And this is stocks, right? This is commodity markets. This isn't crypto. This is the stock market. And so when I see these markets being at such low levels, I see all of this volume coming in here, more than we've ever seen in any of the prior cycles, which were valued at over 100 times where we're at today. I can't help but get excited knowing we're going to be able to take our crypto profits, diversify into commodities, and ride that wave out. I'm not interested in real estate. I know everybody talks about real estate. Everybody wants to be a big real estate investor. Real estate is garbage, especially right now. You know, in my opinion, it's way riskier than anything you could possibly buy. With the mortgage, with the interest rates being so high, especially being as high as what we saw right before the '08 financial crisis, we need a reset inside of the housing market. I'm not buying it. I'm not going into houses, you know, until we have a big drop, 40, 50, 60% type of a move. Until then, I'm going into commodities because what the commodities are telling me is that the reason why these are so undervalued, the reason why that they're going to outperform the SPX is because we're ready for another 2008 type of financial crisis. Now, guys, a lot of people are asking me, well, doesn't that mean crypto's bearish? If the rising interest rates are here, record inflation, Bitcoin is a scarce, or Bitcoin is a risk-on investment, then why would Bitcoin do well throughout all of that period of time? And to that I say, even though Bitcoin for the right now is ultimately correlated to the risk on investments, I don't believe that that's going to be the case forever. The reason why it is now is because we don't have true regulation. If we did have true regulation, many people would not be nearly so skeptical on Bitcoin. They would be way more interested in buying it. And I think that the only reason why we haven't seen Bitcoin correlate more to gold and silver and other commodity markets has everything to do with the fact that it just is still so early on in the cycles. We are very close to that big adoption. When Bitcoin gets major adoption, it will be viewed a lot more, in my opinion, along the lines of gold and silver markets. When it becomes to a point where it starts to ultimately have enough liquidity inside of the market, that the volatility dies out, we don't see quite the same massive bull runs, which we've already kind of seen for the most part. That's where we're going to see Bitcoin sync up with other markets. And I believe Bitcoin itself is unique. It's something that we haven't seen before. And so in the same way that we saw the internet bubble, I think that Bitcoin is actually going to do even more than that, because Bitcoin itself is not only a currency, it's a store of value. So you kind of get all of those in one. Now, as of right now, with there being no regulation, nobody wants to use it as a currency. Nobody really wants to use it as a store of value because it doesn't do either very well. When it becomes to a point where we have the governments that step in and say, hey, this is the way it goes, this is how things are going to be, Bitcoin's okay, it's a commodity, right? We already know that Bitcoin is a commodity, we already know that Tether is a commodity, and we already know that Ethereum is a commodity. they've already come out and said that. We have well, as far a confirmation as we can possibly get right now, we have that with those three assets, which is funny because Tether and Ethereum both are, iffy in that regard. But nonetheless, we have SEC advisors that have come out and said that. So with that being said, most likely that's going to be the way it crumbles. If that's the case, Bitcoin for sure out of all of them will be a commodity. That's the one that we can count on right now. Yes, there will be others, but Bitcoin is the one true commodity as of right now. Once we have the regulation step in, once we have the SEC that says, hey, Bitcoin's a commodity, you're good, it's going to be valued and pegged more to the value of commodities. It's the fact that we don't have all of that 100% regulatory compliance, we don't have 100% a knowing of what the heck they're going to even do right now is the reason why we're so correlated to the equity markets. But nonetheless, guys, I firmly believe, without a doubt in my mind, that Bitcoin is going to do great things. It's still going to stick around. Just because of the fact we have rising interest rates, record inflation, does not mean Bitcoin's just never going to have another bull market again. Because here's the thing, guys, they were raising interest rates, we were having record inflation here, yet you never heard any single person say anything about that being bearish. Everybody was saying it was bullish, everybody was saying all these positive things. Well, it took an 80% correction for all of these same people to start saying, oh man, rising interest rates, we're screwed, Bitcoin's dead, we're never going to have another bull market. If this time was different, you should have been calling this time to be different up here rather than this time to be different after an 80% correction right on path with all of our previous time frames, right? We are right here, 1,450 days, about 4 years from our last major bottom. We know that that's our 4-year cycle low. So I find it just so comical, the fact that all of these people are so adamant in saying that Bitcoin's never going to have another bull cycle just because of rising interest rates and record inflation, when what we're seeing right now is an 80% correction, 4 years from our cycle low, everything that we would normally see at the bottom of the bear market. And at the bottom of the bear market, the majority are always wrong. That's just the way it goes. All the people that were buying up here are now selling down here. They've moved on from crypto. Rising interest rates, it's dead, right? And then they're going to miss out. And what we're going to have is another one of these big moves to the upside. And they're going to miss out on accumulating that. And so guys, if you found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos. If you guys agree with my thesis, if you guys want to also talk about maybe some other commodities you're watching, post them in the description of the comments. I want to actually hear about everything that you guys are saying. I want to know what you guys think about these charts. What do you think about the gold against the SPX? What do you think about silver against the SPX? What do you think about the potential where we're still going to see these markets break out? How do you think a commodity bull run ultimately impacts the crypto prices? I want to hear your guys' opinions. I'd love to comment back on some of those. And so if you guys found value in this, like I said, join the Discord server, download my ebook. If you guys want to follow my trades, follow my course, any of that stuff, links are in the description. There's going to be a lot of profitability to be had on this next leg up, so it would be awesome to see you guys join up in that Signals group. It's lifetime access. Anybody that gets in there is going to have full access for as long as I'm running my YouTube channel, which I have no plans on ever stopping. I love what I do here. I love helping you guys. I love the support that you guys give me. I love the hate that you guys give me. Even though I don't necessarily like it, it kind of hurts my feelings sometimes. Just know that I understand how the cycles work. In the bear market, everybody's going to be upset. Everybody's angry. You guys have lost money. I know, I understand. But the bull market's going to start again. Everything's going to line back up for us to make a lot of profit. And so I just want you guys to know how appreciative I am for the fact that you still continue to watch these videos, how much I appreciate everybody that comments, how much I appreciate everybody that joins the Discord server, whether it's free or paid. I love all of you guys, and I'm just very thankful to be in this position that I'm in. Want to give you guys top quality analysis, want to give you guys some of the best lessons that I've learned throughout my 6 years of crypto. Getting ready for year 7, and I'm super excited to share that with you guys. A lot of profit to be had, and 2023, in my opinion, is going to be a very bullish year. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.